Hello beautiful people, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. So, today is a little story time. I got cheated on. Before I get into this properly, I do want to say that I did not get cheated on by Jack. This story isn't about him. He's a guy from a past relationship. I don't have any ties with him at all anymore. I don't talk to him. I don't talk to him or his friends. Again, I'm not doing a story time like this to dredge up things from the past or to cause argument. Nothing like that. I just feel like, number one, it's important to talk about these things, and number two, it's just a little bit of a story about my life, you know? So I am changing nearly everybody's names in this story, but I'm sure you can just kind of scroll through my Instagram and figure it all out for yourself. If you do want to do that, my Instagram is in the description, so crack on, go for it. But for the sake of the story, I'm going to call him John. Backstory on how John and I met. Just over 4 years ago, my friend Alex and I went to a gig in Bristol, and whilst we were there, we started chatting to these two guys, John and his friend, I'm gonna call him Mark. John and Mark, sure. They lived in Cardiff and we lived in Bath at the time, and they ended up having to leave the gig early to catch the last train back to Cardiff. And before they left, we exchanged, you know, Facebook and numbers and whatever. John and I started chatting and we were talking basically every single day. And then 4 years ago, nearly exactly to the day, John came to Bath to visit me. Lovely. All the other girls that I lived with at the time had gone home for the summer, and I was still up in Bath playing hockey, so I was still in the house. The following week then, I went up to Barry to his parents' house. He came back to my parents' house the week after, down in South Somerset. So there was a lot of travelling, and our relationship kind of started quite quickly. He told me I hadn't long got out of a relationship with another girl, which should have been my first red flag, really, but you know, whatever. So John was still at university. He was about 4 years older than me. So when September came and he went back to his last year at university, I was working in Bristol full time. And due to my schedule and his uni hours, it was mostly me travelling to Cardiff to come and see him. And the girls that I lived with didn't really like him anyway, so... And to be honest, that should have been my second red flag. But I kind of just chose to ignore it and carried on dating him anyway. As our relationship carried on, it became more and more evident that I was putting in most of the effort into our relationship. I was constantly driving or getting the train to come and see him, and I think in our whole relationship he may have made the effort to come and see me like twice. Most of the people in the house that he lived in were so lovely and welcoming. We'd go on nights out together. They wouldn't mind if John was off at university and I was just like in the house by myself. They wouldn't care. And you know, I was having a pretty fun time there. However, there was a girl called Amy, I'm gonna call her. Now, Amy lived in the same shared house as John. They'd known each other since first year and they were best friends, you know, which is absolutely fine. The girls that she lived with in first year would sometimes have parties and they'd be quite welcoming when John brought me along. I was always a little bit cautious of their relationship. Now, the reason being is because every time that I was away from John, so if I was working or if I was just back home, they spent all their time together. He was constantly in her room, talking, chatting, having sleepovers, and they would go on nights out together all the time, sometimes just the two of them, fine, cool. But when I was there, they hardly spoke to each other, literally spent no time together at all. And I always thought it was a little bit weird. And I always thought it was because Amy didn't like me. Now, I always thought maybe it was because she was a little bit jealous that I was kind of stealing John away from her a little bit. Actually, I always thought that she was just constantly looking down at me, like at everything that I did. You know, she went to university and she got a degree, I dropped out. The way that she would look at me would be like, you're a dropout, you know? Well, she works full time. She's not smart enough to get a degree. And maybe it was because I was younger than her as well. You know, she was in her like early 20s and I was 18 or just turned 19. You know, she was always like a proper girly girl and I'm not. So I don't know, we just never clicked really. But, you know, I was always okay about them being friends together. It just sometimes felt a bit weird, but it was fine. No, they're best friends. Cool. Now, during January and February of 2017, I was having some like issues in my job in Bristol, which could potentially be another story time, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. But I basically ended up moving to Cardiff and taking a promotion in my job. Now, when I've told like friends this story in the past, they've always said, oh, you moved to Cardiff for John, blah, 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 blah. And that is just like categorically not true in the slightest. If this promotion had been in Cornwall, if it had been in Manchester, like I would always consider it. The fact that it was in Cardiff just made it very, very convenient. It basically all happened incredibly quickly, and I had about 2 weeks to pack all my stuff and move to Cardiff and find my own place to live. So John very kindly said that I could move in to his shared house and live in his room for like 3 to 4 weeks until I could like find a place for myself. And when I moved in, everything was fine. We weren't really spending that much more time with each other because he was in university during the day and I was working mostly evenings and wouldn't get home until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So, and then I eventually found a girl from another uni shared house who needed her lease taking. She was moving out because of family issues and they had 3 months left on the lease, and so I took her lease from her. So I was living in this new place for 3 months with these 3 girls that I'd never met. As soon as I moved out from his room and moved into my own room in a different house, things got like really, really weird. He was spending all of his time with Amy, which is fine, but he would never ever come to my place. I lived there for 3 months. It was 5 minutes away from his uni house, and he probably went there twice, 3 times max. So he was spending all of his time with her, which is fine. They were going out all the time, fine. They were going out just the 2 of them and would never invite me. Whatever, like you do you, cool. But he also wouldn't let me go out without him being there. He was allowed to go out and do whatever he wanted with his friends, like clubs, pubs, bars, whatever, but I wasn't allowed to go out with my friends unless he was there. I couldn't hang out with guys unless he was there, whether it was during the night or during the day. I was not allowed to hang out with guys unless he was around. He wouldn't let me wear certain outfits, whether it was in the day or on a night out. If he didn't like it or didn't want me to wear it, I would have to change, otherwise I wasn't allowed out. I wasn't allowed to post certain photos on social media if he didn't approve of them. I remember I posted one once, he made me delete it. He literally like took my phone off me and deleted it himself. And then because of that, we started arguing all the time because I wanted to go out and spend time with my friends without him being around. You know, you need to have that kind of separation in a relationship. And I just felt that it was really unfair that he was allowed to go out and hang out with his mates and never invited me. But every time that I would want to go out and hang out with my mates, I wasn't allowed unless he was there. So a lot of the time, I would just be like in the flat by myself whilst he was out. But you know, he was 4 years older than me. He was supposedly much more mature than me. He basically just completely manipulated me, and I didn't realise. After the lease in my student kind of accommodation ran out, I ended up moving to a different flat and living with one other girl. We were both like working professionals. John helped me move everything into my flat, fine. Towards the end of the university year, him and his housemates decided that they wanted to go camping together to celebrate the fact that university was coming to an end. You know, just have a little bit of a celebration, a little bit of a party. Lovely. Amy now had a boyfriend at this point as well, so like all my concerns and worries had depleted anyway. John and Amy had started spending a little bit less time together, and John was finally deciding to come and see me. You know, everything was kind of like fine in our relationships. Myself and Amy's boyfriend, who was absolutely lovely, were originally invited on this camping trip, and Amy's boyfriend had no issues with going. He was absolutely free that weekend and was like, yeah, I'm down. I had work that weekend and so couldn't go for the whole weekend, but I could go for 2 out of the 3 days. So I kind of like swapped shifts with people, blah blah blah, to make it more convenient for me to be able to go and spend time with him and his university friends camping. Less than a week before we were due to go, we were uninvited. Me and Amy's boyfriend. He was told, you know, the uni guys just wanted to keep it the uni guys. I was told there was no point in me going if I was only going to be there for 2 out of the 3 days. There's no point in me traveling all that way. It's literally like an hour and a half, but I was like, okay, cool, John, if that's what you want, like you can spend time with your friends, your uni friends, have the celebration that you want, and I'll see you when you get back. After the camping trip, John was meant to be picking me up from work, and I had a couple of days off and we were going to be spending a few days together. He never turned up. He called me and he said that he was really unwell, that he was having a really bad time with his mental health, and that he'd just gone back to his parents' house in Barry and like just didn't want to do anything or didn't want to see anyone. So I was a little bit disappointed because like we had planned to go and do stuff, but at the end of the day someone's mental health is way more important, so fine. I walked an hour at midnight back to my car in the centre of Cardiff, and I drove down to Barry and went to go and console him basically. And I walked into the house and into his room and he was just like curled up in a ball, like crying. He wouldn't talk to me. We basically stayed up all night because he was just like crying, but he wouldn't tell me why he was crying. The next day I had to wake up really early for work, and I was in work for like a 14-15 hour shift. Did my shift. As soon as I finished I drove back down to Barry and was consoling him again, and this went on for about 3 or 4 days, and he still wouldn't talk to me. On the 4th day, I was still incredibly frustrated that he wouldn't talk to me, but you know, that's just something that you have to deal with, fine. I remember I was like half asleep lying in his bed and he just whispers in my ear, "Hannah, I cheated on you with Amy." I hit the roof. I was fuming. Not just that he had cheated on me with Amy, but that I had spent so much effort over the past 4 days trying to console him because of his bad mental health, when realistically he had cheated on me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was trying to make him feel better for something awful that he'd done to me. Now, I wish I could tell you that I just packed up my stuff and went back to my flat and never spoke to him again, but that would be lying. I did pack my stuff up, I did go back to Cardiff, and I didn't speak to him for about a week. And then he asked if we could meet up so that we could talk through it, because he wanted to apologise to my face. Fine, so we met up. The whole conversation was basically lots of apologising, lots of excuses, and lots of crying, mostly on his part. But instead of me breaking it off, he twisted it in some sort of way, made me believe that it was my fault that he had cheated on me in the first place, and convinced me that we should stay together. So we did. Naive little Hannah was convinced that this was a one-time thing and that he would never do it again. He basically then agreed to not see Amy until I was comfortable with them becoming friends again. And he also agreed not to like go on nights out and stuff unless I was comfortable with him doing so, and that he was going to do everything possible to make this relationship work. And anyway, like the relationship carried on for a couple more months, and it was always like arguing. He was always still trying to control me. You can't post that, you can't go out with those people, you can't do this. And I was going through a lot of things with my job at the time because I had just quit, which again is probably another story time. And I was like in the middle of trying to find another job, so I was really depressed. But like it was all about him, you know? He didn't really care about how I felt, it was always about him. Around the same time that I'm trying to look for a new job, he decides that he wants to be in an open relationship, but only he was going to be in the open bit of the open relationship. So basically, he wanted to go out and openly cheat on me and sleep with other people, but I wasn't allowed to do the same. I had to be loyal to him. We had many arguments about this, and I'm not closed off about having an open relationship at all. I'm closed off about him wanting an open relationship for himself and then not giving me the same respect. It was all a double standard. It was all about him all the time. I'm gonna be in an open relationship with you and I'm gonna go and do whatever I like with whoever I like, but you've got to be loyal to me and you're not allowed to do anything, and you've still got to be my girlfriend, and like complete double standards, you know. So after that argument, and there were many arguments after that, and he was still trying to be controlling, and he was still talking about how he was just gonna cheat on me all the time and I had to accept that it was okay, I eventually ended it. And when I did end it, he did the very mature thing of telling all of his friends that it was me that had cheated on him in the first place. I was a horrible person, I'd ruined his life, I was manipulative, and basically made me out to be the bad guy. And he tweeted for months after us breaking up, saying that I ruined his life. And even when my friends went out into town and they saw him there, he would try to convince them that I was the bad person, and they'd sit there and be like, you're forgetting that I have read all the texts. So it sounds weird though, but as soon as he cheated on me, like, the relationship was over. And even though the relationship did continue for a couple of months after that, like, I was actually over him. Like, I just didn't want to be with him, and the relationship just wasn't a thing anymore. And after we actually officially broke up, I moved on so quickly from him because I'd already had months of getting over him anyway. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing at the time, but it was. Like, as soon as he cheated on me and as soon as he'd said those words, that was it. But I was just trying to hold on to something because I just didn't want to be alone, basically. But yeah, that's the end of the story. As I've said, I don't talk to him anymore. I don't really know anything about his life. Apparently he's got a new girlfriend, like, good for you, whatever. Hope you don't cheat on her too. But if you enjoyed the story, please leave me a thumbs up and let me know about any stories that you might have that are similar to this. Has anyone cheated on you? Have you cheated on anyone? I want to know. Tell me all the gossip. If you do want to see more content like this and you're not already subscribed to me, then make sure that you do press the subscribe button, and I will see you all very soon. Bye guys.